This little Zoom is to put everybody on notice regarding the situation of the restoration of rights of the creditors in a way that hasn't been expressed or explained before now. The documentation that these companies have been served with, it comes from us building up these debts over a period of time in exactly the same way they've done to you. As we have also got the Hereford Police on record confirming that they understand the situation as far as the analogy goes. I said to this particular police woman, she said she didn't understand about secured party creditor status. So I explained that most of us already know this, we just don't know the terminology of it. If a mortgage company implies that it's lent you money to exercise your right of use of a right to shelter, and you've gone to the bank or mortgage broker, they've opened up your credit file and implied that they have actually lent you something when actually you created the credit with your signature, and your share of the planet and its resources are used to indemnify and to create the credit. Now, most people don't understand or comprehend that that's what's going on. They actually think that somebody lent them something. So a very simple question that we've asked in the courts is who lent who what? And obviously they didn't lend you anything. What you did is you actually borrowed their belief. And so most people get the fact that if a mortgage company is the secured party, by implying that they're the creditor while you are the debtor, and you don't pay them, then the mortgage company or the bank can come and take the house. So we got her to agree that yes, she understands that. And then, so the incident was regarding a securitization and disposal of goods from the Ministry of Defence. Now, the Ministry of Defence is just an agency of this private corporation, Her Majesty's government, that's been masquerading as our government since 1934, really, in various forms, since the Securities and Exchange Commission was written in order for them to take the countries piece by piece, as you know, and turn them into corporate states, using all of our assets and rights and shares of this planet and its resources to discharge their hypothetical debt with from the wars that have been created through the religions and the politics that their particular parties have been responsible for creating for the profits through Halliburton, Boeing, etc. and so on. Now, we did the same thing to them. We said to them, so for the first time ever, there are contracts entered into knowingly by private corporations and private organizations. So we notified them and said, if you continue to attempt to trespass on our creditors' shares and equity, then you will be accepting our Schedule A terms and conditions and entering into contract with us and accepting the charges that any further action or deed by you executing the deed will initiate. And so they knowingly entered into the contract. What we're trying to do here, yes, commerce is fiction. We're keeping fiction in its fictional realm. It's us that pick it up and make it real. So by us creating exactly the same process that they had created against you on your behalf, we can then use this 47 quadrillion slave tokens worth of kindness credits. So we keep out of commerce because we have our own currency. For you to discharge the liabilities that you would have continued to create had you continued to be accepting the liabilities as the Vatican debt slave and paying for something that is void of valid contract. So what you have to do, first of all, is recognize your part in all of this, and you acknowledge that by accepting the liabilities. You have to create your own trust in order for you to not be assigning your consent elsewhere. So those are the steps 1, 2, and 3 that we do with the people. Over time, the people that have done those steps have then gone on and granted us the authority. Now, if you look at, people have said, oh, where have you got your authority from? What authority has this got? What authority has the Ministry of Remedy got? We have got the assignment of consent of legally matured beings. Now, the system has only got the implied consent of dead legal fictions, people who are deemed as incapacitated legal minors. You don't know what's going on, which is why you've been doing this right up until now. You've been using a legal fiction and putting all of your credit behind it and then buying it back as privilege. That constitutes you being a minor, a legal minor, and therefore you need to have a government. You need to have a trust, because you can't be trusted to execute your own estate. So we've gone over all of that in previous Zooms, and what I want to get to now is the point. So the definition of what is authority, author, under who's authorizing this. Now, when you stack these two structures up side by side, the commercial system and the legal fiction system that we've all been crediting with our belief that this is legal, is lawful. And so now what you've got is a structure that is lawful. By dissolving any charges implied by the legal system, and discharging really the belief that people have got that they are that legal fiction is the key to all of this. We're at the point now where the settlement of those liabilities have been done en masse. We have secured Her Majesty's government and Hellenic Republic and many other companies, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Deutsche Bank, just to name a few, due to their illegal trespass upon the attempted trespass upon people's credit files, which you didn't even know represented your share of this rock and all of its commodities of planet Earth split into little boxes on a screen somewhere and called the stock exchange. So by you acknowledging that and your role in this, you have got a responsibility to discharge any liabilities yourself. Only you can do it. So what let's say you've got your mortgage, turn around and say, right, okay, I've got 250,000 slave tokens worth of debt on my mortgage. You get a redemption figure from your mortgage broker, and you assign that 250,000 slave tokens worth of credit, because your debt is their credit, you're going to pay them. Now, if you paid in 250,000 into their system, they would make 25 million out of you in their fiat currency mechanism that they've got going on. And obviously we don't want you to do that, because we've gone to great lengths to dissolve this system as a belief mechanism that everybody's been investing their creational capacity in. So what you're saying is that I acknowledge that I would be creating this amount of debt, and now I know the way that this works, that the 250,000 can be offset against the debt that Universal Law Community Trust hold against Her Majesty's government. So when you assign your right of use, we give it a market value. It's the right of use of the thing that has the value. We're not interested in the titles because they never belong to you anyway. So give back to Rome what is Caesar's, whatever that, give them all that back, and you stand again using your rights. So your right of use is what's being implied that you've got through the title. That's not true. You can have a right of use of a property just as a tenant, for example, through a tenancy agreement. You can have the right of use through a private agreement. Let's say it was a family or friend, and they just said, okay, well, I'm going to let you stay in my house for the next 5 years for whatever reason. And that would be a private agreement. But what's going on there is the right of use is being assigned to somebody else. Now, we all think, or we've been taught to think, that, or been taught not to think rather, that the legal, the title deed is what gives you the right of use. It doesn't. You actually are granting your right of use to the legal fiction and then buying it back as a privilege, which is why you have to pay for changing the name on the title deeds when somebody sells it or a child inherits it. So doing away with all of that, this is just when people say about legal jargon, all of the legal system is jargon. It's got absolutely no standing whatsoever except the authority that we give it. It's our consent that really it counts, and you're giving it away to a terrorist system of an anonymous entity, and then wondering why it is that your life looks like it does. So the right of use is going to be given a market value. You're saying to your trust, right, I've heard that there is a debt that's owed to universal law by these corporations, and I want to discharge that using my collateral. So you are going to assign the right of use to your trust, and the trust is going to discharge that market value, 250 grand, off the overall debt that is owed to the people through universal law of 250,000. So the HM government get an adjustment of account showing that this account number, this kindness credit account number, has applied 250,000 slave tokens worth of credit to their debt, and you become secured party creditor again. Now, up until this point, you've been the unsecured creditor of HM government, and what you're doing is you're adjusting, let's say, your standing. Now, what obviously happens at that point is that it's checkmate. A secured party creditor cannot be claimed against by the debtor. And this is why this has been working. And you've seen when we did this is why the system collapsed and you ended up with another pot of belief to launder your minds through with coronavirus, because none of their other mechanisms were able to continue in their form because we'd secured them. Now what you all need to do is secure your minds to such a degree that it doesn't matter what it is that coming at you is, you've got a rebuttal for it. So here we are now at the People's Protection Patrol stage. So just imagine that there is two private corporations. You've all accepted that this corporate state has got some kind of hold over you, whether you like it or not, through threat of fear or violence against you. Now, what if another private organization came along and said, hey guys, you've got a right to contract or not contract, right? Look at the Localism Act. And because that's their definition. We're not agreeing with their definitions, but we're saying whatever it is that they said, they've written this structure. Now, by getting them to then stand there and say, you can't do this, it's not legal, they undo their own standing by the declaration of that. So over the years, we've worked through various circumstances and situations where we've had them, such as the bank saying you can't buy and sell debt, bravo, you need to go home. The land registry turning around saying we don't recognise debt equity swap, bravo, off you go. It means that you can't do what it is that you've been doing all these years and turfing people out of their houses and laying charges against their titles if you don't recognise debt equity swap. We've got Companies House acknowledging that the UCC won, for everybody who would like to say that UCC doesn't exist in in the UK. First of all, the UK is a non-geographical state and it doesn't exist apart from in your mind, because somebody told you, oh, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, now going to be put a big circle around it and call it UK Limited or PLC or Her Majesty's Government. It's all the same thing. This, what's going on in the background there is just a bunch of terrorists that have set up little shop fronts and agencies within those shops, within those businesses, and implied to you that they've got some authority. Okay, if they can do that, you can too, can't you? There is absolutely nothing stopping any of you doing exactly the same thing. And I've talked about this for years. So we've now got to the point where enough people have raised their awareness to the fact that this code, the Uniform Commercial Code and Civil Code and contract law, if you want to call it that, has got, that's what they've been using. They've been calling it lawful. So you can use it too. So under the Localism Act, in order for them to be able to privatise themselves, they had to, but through the Monopolies and Merger Commission and the various other legislation, they wrote this legislation in order for them to be able to privatise us. And so it meant that at that point, there has to be a contract. Where is the contract? Is you using a legal fiction, you're granting your consent to be implied that you agree to be an employee bound by their rules and acts and legislation and code. Now, within that code then, what if another private organisation appeared and said, right, guys, everybody in the community, are you happy with the services that you've got from this private corporation over here? Metropolitan Police, let's say. Registered inside Dun & Bradstreet. Are you happy with Her Majesty's Government, HMG? Are you happy with the HMCTS and the legal remedy that they imply that you can get by paying and paying off, buy them off, buying off a parking ticket or an offence? Just through you, not even knowing that you were acting as an employee. What if a company came along and said, here you go, guys, we're a company that stands on universal law. We have got our own ability to be able to discharge your liabilities through a trust. We have got the People's Protection Patrol in order to protect your rights within your community. And we have got our own currency. We've got our own suppliers and producers of organic food, natural remedies, and free energy being created just by you simply doing some steps, discharging your liabilities. That's why a trust was created in the first place, to prevent you as a private individual being utilised as a revolving credit facility and a utility transmitting account, which is what you've ended up being. And so they could play their game of commerce on your shares that they were using in the stock exchange. And the agreement was that the public and the private would never be mixed. Well, the minute that they did that, obviously, this theft, asset laundering, terrorism, all of those things. So people who have shown their due diligence and bothered to learn this can no longer be considered to be legally legal minors. You no longer need a government or a trust by their definition, because you've already created your own. That shows that you know what it is that's going on. So you've exemplified that just by doing that assignment of consent. And even if you don't do anything else, you've got the assignment of consent there stating the facts. Your name's under non-disclosure because the terms and conditions weren't disclosed to your parents, and you'll be prosecuted if you use it, because that's what they're waiting to do. So they're waiting for you to prosecute yourself, to commit fraud upon your soul, so that they can then prosecute you for doing that. And it's not just coercion on that scale. It's fraud, it's theft, it's all of those things that we talked about before. Now, what we've got and what we've been doing is we've relisted all of the assets, every single company that's recorded inside Companies House, every single DVLA registration number, every single property, land registry, every single asset list of every council, every single piece of information has been secured. And we are assigning it into our ledger book roles and discharging a certain amount off the debt to settle the debt. The debt is going to be forgiven, because all you really need, we don't want to make profit out of, we're as bad as they are, if that's what we intend to do. It's about getting this debt back to zero and all of the assets and the rights back in the people's hands. So the way that we've been doing this is through this restoration of rights process. You get the asset list of all of the property and asset that's being implied to be held by these now de facto corporates councils that have no authority to act because we haven't granted them, as their secured party creditors, the assignment of consent or any authority to continue trading. Now, every time any of these companies try to imply that they have got some authority, keep that document for the evidence that we need to be able to put these people or this system into the Ministry of Remedy to remedy this. Obviously, this system's not doing this on its own, and it's the minds of the, let's say, psychotics who are still fundamental in upholding and supporting their own terrorism, not realizing that the destruction of others is the destruction of themselves. So that's really the debt that we're talking about settling. And it looks like this in paper form or commercial form or data spreadsheets or Securities Exchange Commission or Companies House, etc. So we've got our own version of that where all of this assignment is accounted for. And every time an account goes across there, it's got a value to it, and then they get an adjustment of account, exactly the same way that the official receivers would behave if they were dealing with you in a bankruptcy. They would settle all of the secured party creditors, take their big bunts for themselves. Obviously, we're not interested in that. And they would leave you still with a debt after they've sold all of your assets, because that's the way they work. They're not there to help you, they're there to help themselves. What if you had a community organization that was set up to help you as an individual and you as a community, and using a different currency? And that is what you've got. All we're saying to you is, in the same way that you've got a right to contract or not contract, give us your assignment of consent as People's Protection Patrol to be able to uphold and protect your rights in your community in whatever way that might be. It might be somebody attending where anytime you would normally call the police, give us a call. Anytime that you have an interaction with the police, if you haven't done your training as Minister MFN and you feel that you need some backup, call us. Now what we've got are teams of people being trained all over the country who are going to stand surety to you and put themselves between you and this system while you learn what it is that's been going on, so that you can stand at the front then when you feel confident enough to do this yourself. So the system was put on notice that this was going to happen. They were given an amnesty for displaying corporates. I'm just looking for the ticket, sorry. For displaying corporate plates. Anybody displaying corporate plates after the 28th of February it was, then we have obviously got to remedy the matter that is open terrorism. You are openly displaying that you agree with operating a terrorist system, and you are paying your tax to them because you don't know any better and you haven't bothered to show any due diligence. You are exemplifying Vatican debt slavery and a willingness to support terrorism. That's got to stop. How do we stop that? Okay, so what gives the system the authority to exist? Your consent. When you've assigned that consent elsewhere, they've got nothing. And so if you've assigned your consent to another organization that's created you a trust, and then we are obliged to, as your trust, to be able to provide you with your security. So everything that we're doing is not only legal, put it to one side. Yes, it's all legal because this is their system and you're just doing it back to them. What's more important is it lawful? And since 1980, you know probably that the evictions from property, there could be no writs given or handed out in relation to somebody having a debt, because all of your debts were supposed to be discharged when they took your assets the last time round and discharged all of the liabilities that were supposedly outstanding from the 1980s. So no writs were then required because all debt was settled. It's only the legal miner's mind that keeps this system going. So we are obliged to go into our community now and notify each one of these incapacitated minds and capacitate them, empower them. And we have to do, they're not, they're so conditioned, we all are, into the definition of authority. Okay, so who has got the authority? In your community, there is a huge percentage of people now who are not accepting legal definitions as law anymore. Those of you that continue to do that, you're going to be receiving a ticket. There are people going to be moving amongst you in the community who are there with the assignment of consent of the people of the secured party creditors of Her Majesty's government, which gives us the standing in commerce to be able to act then through a company called Authorito in order for us to be able to give you your remedy to legal system fiction, but also to be able to give you a forum and a platform for you to start to discharge the liabilities that your incapacitated mind has been continuing to create. Don't let the ego get in the way. The truth is, doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank, your conscience isn't covered, and you need to settle a debt that's being held in a much greater ledger book than anything that we can come up with. Some people call it the Akashic Records. It is that debt that is being passed on generation to generation, and until we break that spell, we are going to continue down this route. And really, we're reaping what we're sowing now with this mass culling of the population of people who have completely unconsciously supported the slavery system. So the terrorist ticket is going to be issued with, and obviously if we're going to come along and say, look guys, you're creating a liability, there has to be a means to be able to discharge that liability. You have to be able to remedy that liability that's been created. And the liability is you driving around in a car that you've paid your tax for something that you already own to these private corporations that are actually secured. What instead you should be doing, in order for you, if you receive one of these tickets, you've got 28 days to redeem yourself. You send in the offensive item that you've been using, and we will re-record your consent. You're assigning your consent, saying, look guys, I didn't know. Don't give me 1,000 slave tokens worth of kindness credits, fine. And so we're going to give you the ticket, and you're going to be in that state, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay my £1,000 fine? And we're going to offer you the remedy. So even at the worst fearful point that you've been conditioned to respond with fear and compounding the fear, we're going to take that at that point and settle it. We're giving you the remedy. Here, how do we remedy the legal system being upheld in our communities? By making it unlawful. It already is unlawful, but it's also illegal now. Why is it illegal? Because your new secured party creditors, according to their system, their code, it's the secured party creditors who write the rules, right? You'll get that. If it's the secured party creditors who write the rules, then these are the rules from now on. You need to be operating in the private. If you've got a company, you put your company registration number, send it over, and we will assign that. You get the right of use of your company back. All of the liabilities will be discharged. You will have the utilities discharged, which is what a trust was created for, to discharge all the liabilities of the beneficiaries, so that you never were the liability holder of this commercial game that we said, yes, you can go and play that. Now, your company will agree to follow our constitution. So you're going to have to look, we'll do an assessment through Big Blue Asset Management. We'll do an assessment on your business for you. We will provide you with suppliers who are working with the ethos, which is organic food, natural remedies, and free energy. And you will supply that. Gone are the days where you're going to be able to profit by supplying shit to people that actually causes profits profiteering through the pharmaceutical industry because of how sick you're making them, because you think that you need to make profit in order for you to pay your liabilities. We're just chopping the chains of that. We will stand surety to your liabilities. You get an account with prepaid credit inside it, and you discharge all of that. No vaccine required, no chip, no mask, no persecution, and you're free to do whatever it is that you really came here to do, because you did not come here to be a Vatican debt slave. None of you did. Even though some of you might enjoy it and you get a lot of money for it, you've sold your soul. And it's that we're trying to help you remedy. Now, anybody who continues after they've received a ticket and they don't remedy the matter and continue to openly support terrorism, there will be a summons and a warrant issued for you to attend a hearing under the realm of Ministry of Remedy under universal law. And straight away, you're guilty. Before there is absolutely no excuse now. There is no reason for any of us to be continuating supporting this tyranny and terrorism in our communities. And here's your way out. Here is your lawful remedy to settle this matter, and also here is your legal commercial remedy that has settled the matter, if there could have ever been any matter about a fiction system. So at that point, you can then, the sentence is up to 10 years in a rehabilitation centre, because clearly you are a threat to our community if you willingly want to support these terrorists. So yes, it's a huge education going on in our community, but it's about time. And so you will see People's Protection Patrol moving amongst you in the community. First of all, we'll be targeting those that are, the word coercion, those people who would like to imply that you have got some obligation to commit fraud upon your soul. The people who are walking around wearing uniforms that have not got any authority from the secured party creditors to be displaying, these people are misrepresenting the law, and therefore they are criminals. These people will be secured first. The assets are being secured at the moment, and the rights of the use of the asset is being given back to you all as a community, as a trust. You can then come and say, right, I've seen this piece of land, for example, and I'd like to create a community project. Put your proposal to your community. You're not coming to one centralized governing body. You're going to the people in your community who are your plumbers, your builders, the people who are supporting you at the time of need. Really, it's not the government. It's the government. It's not the government that is supplying you with what it is that you need. It's the people who support you in the community that are actually standing surety to you and always were. The problem is that you've been exchanging your energy into slave tokens to go and buy their skills and services, because they've had to charge you slave tokens because they think they're being charged too. So can you imagine what would happen if that chain was broken just by one person? Here you are looking at it. So because this chain was broken by one individual and kicked to the curb, that, let's say, ignited something in the rest of the minds of the people. And here we are now with a huge amount of people and secured party creditors who have used this process, and it is on their authority that we act. Now, we would like it obviously to be everybody's authority. We've waited long enough. If we wait any longer, there's going to be hardly any of you left. And we don't want, yes, okay, there are comments that we've made and things about people going and willingly accepting gene therapy and calling it a vaccine in the name of coronavirus. Those people, you're way gone. There's not a lot we can do for you in that mindset. Just remember your infinite energy, and it doesn't matter what happens to your body, is all I can say. The rest of you, you've got a window of opportunity now. And people have asked us, due to the response from Companies House, you've all heard Boris Johnson talking about it'll be back to normal from the 21st of June. Why? On the 21st of June, The 180 days expires from the dissolution of one of their little games of this particular company. It's not that company that we're secured to, it's all of the companies that we're secured to. So it doesn't matter whether it's UK government limited, or whether it's UK limited, or whether it's Smith and Brown's factory. All of those legal fictions that we use to create other legal fictions, such as companies, they're all secured. Anybody using a legal fiction will be issued a terrorist ticket. And obviously, so what else is it that you can do? Here you go across there, assign your consent, and we'll discharge that liability. And the debt is forgiven. That's the most important thing. We're not doing this so that we can control you, or so that we can persecute you for profit in the same way that they have. Because if that was our goal, we could have joined forces with them, as we were already. All of us were working for this system. We were all supporting terrorism. And why would we bother going to such lengths and investing our energy if it wasn't a huge, massive change that we wanted? And also, what I want to point out is the structure that you have got to take advantage of, or that you have the right of use of, is to be used right. There's no profiteering out of helping people. That first part of that, the 5 hours exchange, that's my 5 hours giving to you, to give to another, that there is no charge for that. Now, that's all of the structure itself given to you. How you want to use it is down to your particular circumstances. Some people don't have any liabilities as far as utilities go, but they might have a mortgage. Some people don't have any liabilities as far as utilities go, but they've got a big problem with the child protection. So everybody, it doesn't matter what or who it is that we're talking to, we're all being persecuted for profit. And the only way that we can make any difference is by removing that need for implying that capitalism can be conducted upon our rights. So I just wanted to introduce the terrorist tickets and to offer this opportunity to anybody who's interested in being trained in universal law, which obviously covers all that they've created with universal law. Before anybody can create anything, first there's universal law. And then there's adding to the administration of the universal law, which comes from then ecclesiastical, Vatican, trade law, all of that hierarchy system. And there you are right at the bottom, haven't got a bloody clue about any of it, and paying the protection racket who've kept all this information away from you so that they can persecute you for profit through your ignorant state. That's the offer of remedy that we're really offering. And the author of it really should be you. Thank you.